Welcome to the Proposition D training for department heads and executive leadership. My name is Erin, and I'm one of the training and outreach specialists at the San Francisco Ethics Commission. Proposition D was passed by voters this past March 5th. We'll start by grounding the conversation on Proposition D's purpose and intent. We'll then introduce the changes to ethics law brought about by Proposition D and do a deep dive into its priority topics. We'll discuss hypotheticals that implicate these changes to the law and identify courses of action that comply with the law. We will share resources and suggestions for informing your departmental staff about these changes. Advice is fact-specific. The examples provided in this training are hypothetical situations that should not be relied upon as substitution for Ethics Commission advice. Seek advice from the Ethics Commission anytime you need to know how the law applies to your own conduct. Some things that may come up: honesty, fairness, responsible stewards of public funds, accountable to the people, transparent, act impartially, with the public's interest before our own, instead of seeking a personal advantage for ourselves or others. Everyone who lives, works, or plays in San Francisco trusts us with important decisions every day. The public's trust in our government and our democratic institution is key. We honor that trust by making decisions in a manner consistent with this trust. As we embark on this training, we want to thank you for being here and for the vital work you do every day to serve our communities with integrity. Proposition D passed on March 5th with overwhelming public support. The Ethics Commission placed Proposition D on the ballot to address ethics issues that were evidenced in recent corruption scandals, to increase transparency, and close loopholes that undermined public trust. We know that the vast majority of city officers and employees show up to work every day to do vital work for our communities with integrity and excellence. We also know it's not always easy in the midst of difficult choices, competing goals, and challenging contexts. It is true that ethics laws can be nuanced and require time to learn and comply with. But we are here to help you not only familiarize yourselves with the Proposition D changes to ethics law, but also to share tips and resources to learn more. As we start this training, we want to thank you for being here and for the vital work you do every day to support the integrity of city government. As a city leader, your role is critical in helping implement Proposition D within your departments. And we're here to provide support and guidance along the way. Let's do an overview of what Proposition D does. Proposition D amends the city's Campaign and Government Conduct Code to tighten city ethics laws and close loopholes. It was passed by voters on March 5th, 2024. It will become operative October 12th, 2024. In a nutshell, Proposition D does the following: clarifies and expands the city's rules against gifts from restricted sources, creates a standardized disclosure requirement for payments made to city departments, extends the annual ethics training requirement for all Form 700 filers, and standardizes and codifies rules regarding incompatible activities, requires annual ethics training for all Form 700 filers. Proposition D expands the city's anti-bribery prohibition, allows penalties to be imposed on city officers or employees who fail to disclose required personal, professional, or business relationships, standardizes penalty provisions, allows the Ethics Commission to require electronic filing of public disclosures, and protects ethics laws from legislative amendments. We'll begin with changes to the city's restricted source rule, which limits the flow of restricted source gifts to city officials. First things first, what is a gift? A gift is anything of value that you do not pay full price for. For example, free or discounted passes or tickets to special events, free or discounted food, drink, travel, and accommodations, free or discounted services, gift baskets, gift cards, etc. These are only some examples. Anything of value that is offered to you may be a gift. Why do we have gift rules in government? Gifts are a part of our personal and social lives. But in government, gifts have a different implication. Receiving gifts may raise ethical flags about how fair our decisions really are. Because if someone you or your department is doing business with gives you a gift, they may expect something in return. If you accept a gift, you may feel pressured to give something in return. Even if you don't feel pressure to do anything in return, the public could perceive it differently. Gifts can affect our impartiality and create real or perceived conflicts of interest. That's why we prohibit gifts from restricted sources, and we have other restrictions on gifts. Before Proposition D, the restricted source rule prohibits all city officials from soliciting or accepting a gift from a restricted source. There is a narrow definition of restricted sources that includes only contractors and anyone who attempted to influence you in the past 12 months. There are multiple state and local exceptions that apply, and narrow circumstances where this rule applies. Proposition D expands the definition of a restricted source. It expands the prohibition to ban the facilitation or coordination of gifts from restricted sources, and closes other related loopholes, as we will see momentarily. And it gets rid of the many state and previous local exceptions that undermine the intent of the city's rule by creating a definition of gift in San Francisco law, with its own exceptions that are developed locally by the Ethics Commission, with the purpose of implementing this rule. The law and principles of public service say that we cannot accept gifts from restricted sources. With Proposition D, who is a restricted source of gifts? Anyone doing business with your department is a restricted source of gifts. That means we may not solicit or accept gifts from them. We also may not accept or solicit gifts from them or other city officials, and for family members, as we will see soon. Anyone doing business with your department includes anyone who contracts with your department. This includes affiliates of entities that contract with your department. Affiliate refers to anyone on the board of directors, principal officers, or persons with a 10% ownership interest in an entity that contracts with your department. For how long are contractors and their affiliates restricted sources to you and your department? From the submission of a proposal until 12 months after the term of the contract ends, or, if no contract is approved, 12 months after negotiations regarding the contract conclude. People who do business with your department and who are restricted sources of gifts also include anyone involved in certain permit or license proceedings. If an item is issued by your department and would be approved by your department head, your department's board or commission, or the board of supervisors, The permit or license applicant or holder is a restricted source for the entire department. Basic principle: if the license or permit goes before these parties, it is a restricted source for the whole department. Also, anyone who seeks or has a license, permit, or other entitlement for use where you are personally and substantially involved is also a restricted source of gifts to you. The duration of the prohibition is for 12 months after the action was taken on the item. That means from when the applicant initiates the proceeding until 12 months after the final decision to approve, extend, or deny the permit, license, or other entitlement for use. In addition, restricted sources still include anyone who during the prior 12 months attempted to influence the officer or employee in any legislative or administrative action. And for city officers, a registered lobbyist. The restricted source rule applies to all city officers and employees of the city and county of San Francisco. You are encouraged to have a designated representative keep a directory or list of contractors and permit consultants and share it with your employees so that they are aware. What does this mean? With Proposition D, soliciting, accepting, facilitating, or coordinating gifts from restricted sources is prohibited even if the gift is for other city officials. Before, the prohibition only included soliciting or accepting gifts from restricted sources. In other words, Proposition D expands the restricted source prohibition to prohibit individuals from acting as intermediaries for gifts from restricted sources. Proposition D also expands the prohibition on soliciting or accepting a gift from any person, including a city department, if you know or have reason to know that the gift was funded, provided, or directed by a restricted source. This means that if you know or have reason to know that a gift comes from a restricted source, we cannot accept it, even if it comes from an intermediary, including a city department. It is also prohibited to solicit or accept any gift from a restricted source for oneself or for any family member. Scenarios: a new restaurant in town. Theo is a city official who approved a non-ministerial license to open a restaurant. 6 months later, Tim, the restaurant owner, mailed Theo 2 discount vouchers for their new location. Think about the right course of action. Proposition D says that city officers and employees may not solicit, coordinate, facilitate, or accept any gift for themselves or any other city official if the officer or employee knows or has reason to know that the source of the gift is a restricted source. This means that in the previous hypothetical, Theo may not accept the discount for themselves because Tim was a restricted source. Theo personally and substantially participated in approving Tim's license less than 12 months ago. Theo also may not accept or solicit any gift from Tim for any other city official or any family member for the duration of the prohibition. Scenario: a retirement gift. Sylvia is a permit consultant registered with the Ethics Commission who has contracted Rob, a city manager, and his department over the years. Sylvia called Rob last month about a permit issue. Rob mentioned in passing that he was leaving early to go to his spouse's retirement party. Today, Sylvia stops by Rob's office to bring a retirement present for his spouse. Think about whether Rob may accept this gift. Any permit consultant who is registered with the Ethics Commission is a restricted source, if the permit consultant has reported any contacts with your department to carry out permit consulting services during the prior 12 months. In this hypothetical, Sylvia was a permit consultant who had contacted Rob last month about a permit issue. So, Sylvia was a restricted source. Per Proposition D, soliciting or accepting any gift from a restricted source for any family member is prohibited. Scenario: a sporting event. Alexis, a city officer, receives a free ticket from a trade association to attend a sporting event with industry leaders. Tickets are valued at $500. The trade association is not a restricted source to Alexis or their department. Acme Inc., a technology company, is the sponsor and organizer of the sporting event. Acme Inc. gifted the ticket to the trade association. Acme Inc. has just responded to a request for proposals for technology services issued by Alexis's department. Consider the answer. Should Alexis accept the ticket? City officers and employees may not solicit, coordinate, facilitate, or accept any gift for themselves or any other city official if the officer or employee knows or has reason to know that the source of the gift is a restricted source. When in doubt, seek guidance before accepting a gift to avoid violating the law. Now we'll go over some exceptions to the restricted source rule. As we mentioned before, prior to Proposition D, applying the state exceptions that had been developed for state purposes, such as Form 700 disclosures, to the city's restricted source rule resulted in potential loopholes. For example, someone could try and claim that it was okay to accept a gift from a contractor with their department if it was a birthday gift or as a part of home hospitality. Once Proposition D goes into effect, that will no longer be possible. Any gifts from contractors, people who try to influence you, or other restricted sources are prohibited. It doesn't matter if it's for a special occasion or if the contractor is a long-term friend. Former exceptions to the local rule are also changing. The former exception for gifts of food or drink to be shared in office is going away. Gifts of food or drink to be shared in office coming from restricted sources cannot be solicited, accepted, facilitated, or coordinated. And the exception to gifts worth $25 or less up to 4 times per year will be narrowed to only allow for common office courtesies received at the restricted source's place of business, as we will discuss in a later slide. Per Proposition D, the city will have its own definition of gift, which mirrors the state's definition, but does not include the many state exceptions. A gift is anything of value for which you do not provide something of equal or greater value in return. This may include a discount or a rebate not available to other members of the public. Exceptions to the restricted source rule will be developed locally by the Ethics Commission through regulations. Regulations include the following exceptions to the city's restricted source rule. Routine office courtesies of $25 or less, up to 4 times a year, at the restricted source's place of business, only where attendance is appropriate to the official duties of the officer or employee. Free attendance at a widely attended convention or ceremony, only where attendance is appropriate to the official duties of the official, and just for that official, not a +1. Free attendance may include waiver of the conference fee, the provision of local transportation, or the provision of food, refreshments, entertainment, or instructional material given to all attendees as an integral part of the event, but it does not include entertainment collateral to the event. Gifts that are not used and that within 30 days are returned or reimbursed to the donor, or donated to a 501c3 nonprofit, where neither you or your immediate family holds a position and without claiming a tax deduction, are not considered gifts. Scenario: business lunch. A longtime contractor who works with your department and is also a personal friend invites you out to lunch to discuss future projects. They offer to pick up the bill. You don't think it's necessary, but don't want to be rude. Consider the best course of action. State exceptions for the purposes of Form 700 filing, for example, close personal friends, no longer apply to the local restricted source rule. It's important to acknowledge that refusing a gift can feel awkward. We wanted to share tips and language to refuse gifts in socially and culturally appropriate ways. The more we practice this language in advance, the more likely it can come in handy when we need it. Here is some sample language for a polite refusal. Thank you so much for the lunch offer. I apologize, but I cannot accept it. City policy does not allow us to accept gifts from contractors, clients, etc. Still, I really appreciate the gesture and thank you for your understanding. What if you get a gift from a restricted source? You can ungift a gift by returning the gift unused to the donor within 30 days of receipt or reimbursing the donor within 30 days of receipt. You can donate, also within 30 days of receipt, the gift unused to a 501c3 nonprofit organization as long as you or a member of your immediate family holds no position in the organization and you do not take a tax deduction for the donation. Regifting the gift is prohibited. It counts as taking the gift. Same with taking the gift but not using it. Scenario: a site visit. Sheila, Desiree, and Salvador are city employees who are conducting an annual site visit of the facilities of a nonprofit organization that contracts with their department. Tea, coffee, and light snacks are available by the front desk. Aggregate value is less than $25 per person. Consider the correct course of action. Routine office courtesies with an aggregate value of $25 or less, up to 4 times a year, at the restricted source's place of business, are allowed only at the time that the officer or employee must visit the place of business to carry out city duties. Only at the times that the officer or employee must visit the place of business to carry out city duties. Examples include coffee, tea, water, bagels, pastries, a pad of paper, or a writing instrument. They do not include alcohol. Scenario: a holiday gift. Kim works at the front desk of a city department and receives a delivery of a holiday food basket from Acme Inc. Kim's department issued a permit to Acme Inc. 2 months ago. The gift of food is not addressed to any employee, but is for everyone in the office to share. Consider what Kim should do to comply with the changes in the law brought by Proposition D. A contractor with the department is a restricted source of gifts for all employees and officers within that department. Currently, there is an exception to the restricted source rule for voluntary gifts of food and drink to be shared in the office among officers and employees. This is going away once Proposition D goes into effect. There are some exceptions pertaining to event tickets. A ticket for an official and one guest for the admission to a facility, event, show, or performance where the official performs a ceremonial role on the behalf of their agency is exempted. A single ticket provided by a 501c3 nonprofit to a fundraiser hosted by the nonprofit is exempt if used by an official whose attendance is necessary for official city duties. The department may not use the ticket for employee appreciation or as a reward for public service. A single ticket to an art exhibit, performance, athletic, sporting, cultural, or other entertainment event provided by an organization holding the event is exempted if the ticket is used by an official whose attendance is necessary to carry out the official's city duties. Employees of departments that regularly fund or permit arts, recreational, and cultural events and productions may accept a single additional ticket for a guest to accompany them to the event or production. The department may not use the ticket for employee appreciation or as a reward for public service. The department must receive the tickets and publicly report the tickets an employee or officer accepts under these exceptions through a new form that the Ethics Commission is designing. We will discuss this disclosure later in this training. Other state and local disclosure requirements may apply. Scenario: concert tickets. An organization that puts on concerts in the city offers you 2 free tickets to a concert in San Francisco. You were in charge of approving a permit for the concert organizer earlier this year. Consider the best course of action. In this hypothetical, the official was personally and substantially involved in issuing the permit. Thus, the permit holder becomes a restricted source of gifts for 12 months since the action is taken. It would also be a restricted source if their department head or commission approved the permit, even if the official in the scenario would not have been personally or substantially involved. None of the 3 exceptions related to tickets apply because there is no ceremonial role and it has nothing to do with official duties. The officer or employee approved a permit for this entity. No need to attend any of their concerts. It is plainly a prohibited gift from a restricted source to the individual. Scenario: industry conference. The executive director of a nonprofit organization that contracts with your department invites you to speak at a widely attended conference that features client testimonials. If you accept the invite, the nonprofit will also pay for your travel, including airfare and hotel. You would also get free admission to the rest of the conference. Consider what is the best course of action. There is an exception for free attendance at a widely attended conference where attendance is appropriate to the official duties of the officer or employee, and the organizer provides the free attendance voluntarily. This exception may include waiver of all or part of a conference or other fee, the provision of local transportation, or the provision of food, refreshments, entertainment, or instructional material furnished to all attendees as an integral part of the event, but not travel costs like airfare and accommodations, or entertainment collateral to the event. A gift of travel from a restricted source is prohibited. Briefly, we want to share some of the work of ethicists who've thought about this question. How do I navigate complex ethical situations where I may not know the answers? How do I ensure I'm an active bystander that can speak up if something isn't right? Thinking through the steps on this slide can be helpful for when we run into situations that may or may not be clearly defined in the law. These are some rules of thumb we can use to help identify red flags or at least know what we don't know so we can seek advice. For example, say you are given a gift by someone you know through your work as a city official. You can ask yourself, is it legal to accept it? Maybe you know the answer, maybe you are unsure. Is it in sync with our values as public servants, or does it feel right? Or would I be comfortable if it lands on the front page of a newspaper? If you are unsure or if something doesn't feel right, ask and speak up. You can seek advice on whether or not a gift is permissible by sending an email to the Ethics Commission or submitting it through our online portals. Proposition D creates a new disclosure requirement for gifts to city departments. Let's look into that in more detail. Currently, before Proposition D, when a city department receives a gift from a non-city source, they have to disclose it in 3 different places, and there is no central place to view the gifts to city departments from outside sources. Also, there are no consequences for failing to report the gift. With Proposition D, city departments will have to disclose the gifts they receive through an online public filing system. The public will be able to access this information all in one place through Data SF. And the department head will have the responsibility to timely report gifts to their department. If you ever receive or need to process a gift to your department, let the appropriate internal source know so that they can disclose it. It is the department head's responsibility to ensure their department complies with this disclosure requirement and may be subject to discipline by their appointing authority if the department fails to comply. Scenario: a gift to your department. A private company is moving out of an office building that has your city department as another tenant. The company is not going to take all of its furniture to its new location and offers to donate it to your department. Consider the best course of action. The department head or their delegate must disclose the gift, including the following information: the source, date, and value of gift and description, the purpose of use, the names of city officials who benefited from the gift, and a description of any financial interest the donor has involving the city. The disclosure report is due within 15 calendar days after the end of the month that the department received the gift and is filed electronically. First disclosure will take place by December 15th for gifts received November 1st through November 30th, 2024, through a form currently being tested by the Ethics Commission. The Ethics Commission will send out ongoing communications, resources, and additional training on how to fill out the form. Proposition D extends the requirement to take an ethics training to more city officials. Only city officers, including department heads, elected officials, commissioners, and board members, take the ethics training on an annual basis. With Proposition D, effective October 12, 2024, all city officers and employees who file a Statement of Economic Interest, or a Form 700, will receive ethics training within 30 days of assuming office, and then annually, every year by April 1st. If you file the Form 700, you will have to complete this mandatory training starting next year before the April 1st deadline. If you don't file a Form 700, this requirement to take the training will not apply to you. That said, the Ethics Commission will also produce, and city departments will distribute, a summary of relevant state and local ethics laws that departments will send out to all of its officers and employees every year starting next year. The goal of expanding training is for all employees who participate in making government decisions on a regular basis to feel confident in knowing what we can and cannot do, identify when there's ethical risk, and speak up if something is not right. Now we will go over the standard rules on incompatible activities. You may be familiar with your department's Statement of Incompatible Activities, a document that is circulated by your department once a year with rules on what activities are incompatible with city duties. Currently, each department has its own separate Statement of Incompatible Activities, or SIA, largely containing the same rules. This document also includes instructions for requesting an advanced written determination to your department's decision maker to figure out whether an activity an officer or employee wants to engage in was incompatible or not with their city job. Currently, city officials can request advanced written determinations on many of the rules in their statements in their department's SIA. With Proposition D, instead of having one statement of incompatible activities per department, we will have all of these rules codified in the law. Existing departmental SIAs will no longer be used. The rules themselves won't change, but instead of just being on documents, they will be the law and will apply to all city employees and officers across the board. The ability to seek an AWD is only retained for the rules against excessive time demands and regular disqualifications. For other rules, city officials will need to request advice from the Ethics Commission. If you had an advanced written determination for things other than excessive time demands or regular disqualifications, activities regularly keeping you from doing your city job, it will no longer be operative after October 12th. You should seek advice with the Ethics Commission as to whether the behavior is prohibited. As we mentioned before, the Ethics Commission will create an annual ethics summary that will go out to city officers and employees through their departments each year. A best practice would be to give it to all new employees when they start as well. Officers and employees are prohibited from engaging in activities that are subject to the control, inspection, review, audit, permitting, enforcement, contracting, or are otherwise within the responsibility of their department. Providing selective assistance. Using city resources for private gain or advantage. Using the prestige of office for private gain or advantage. Using city work product in exchange for anything of value and without appropriate authorization. Acting as an unauthorized city representative. Accepting payment from anyone other than the city for city duties or advice. Conducting lobbying activity. And engaging in activities with excessive time demands or that regularly disqualify them from city assignments or responsibilities. Scenario: incompatible activities. Department A has just put out an RFP for consulting services. Raj, an employee in Department A, receives a voicemail from a former colleague who works at a consulting company that does business with the city. The voicemail says, "Hey Raj, this is Charlie. I saw the new RFP for consulting services. Can you tell me more about what kind of bidder profile you're looking for, and who else has applied so far?" Consider the best course of action. While the core rules from the Statements of Incompatible Activities were moved into the code, some departments had additional rules in their Statement of Incompatible Activities that were not moved into the code, which your department may wish to retain as departmental policy. Please keep in mind that departmental policies may need to be noticed to city bargaining units by the Department of Human Resources, Employee Relations Division, ERD. This is a process that should be completed prior to the operative date of Proposition D. For questions or to be connected with Employee Relations Division, contact Michael Canning, Policy and Legislative Affairs Manager at the Ethics Commission. Please note that if your department wishes to keep any unique rules in their statements of incompatible activities as departmental policies, these departmental policies will not be enforced by the Ethics Commission. It will be the responsibility of the department to enforce their policies and address violations accordingly. Proposition D also expands the bribery prohibition. Currently, before Proposition D, the city's bribery rule reads, "No person shall offer or make, and no officer or city employee shall accept, any gift with the intent that the city officer or employee will be influenced in the performance of any official act." With Proposition D, the city's bribery rule now applies to anything of value, including campaign contributions, that is solicited or offered with the intent to influence. City officials are prohibited from soliciting bribes, not only accepting bribes. Agreeing to provide a bribe is prohibited. A payment can be a bribe, even if the person receiving the payment is someone other than the city official. Case study. In this hypothetical, a government official is accused of soliciting and accepting bribes from business people in exchange for taking government action. The indictment alleges that this public officer agreed to take official action in exchange for payments to family members and donations to nonprofits they were affiliated with. Consider how the changes to the bribery rule brought by Proposition D help prevent and address violations like the ones described above. Now we will go over penalties for failing to make required disclosures of relationships. As you know, we must disclose in the public record any personal, professional, or business relationship we have with anyone who is the subject of a government decision we are making, or who has ownership or a financial interest in a government decision that we are making. This is to avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest. For example, if we are deciding whether or not to grant a permit, and the permit applicant is a friend or a colleague, we need to disclose it, which means to say it on the public record. Before Proposition D, there were no penalties to a city official for failure to disclose these relationships. With Proposition D, city officers and employees must continue to disclose their relationships with any person who is the subject of, has ownership, or a financial interest in a governmental decision being made by the officer or employee. And there may be penalties for failure to make required disclosures of these relationships. The Ethics Commission may adopt regulations regarding how to make and archive these required disclosures. Now let's look at general penalty provisions. Prior to Proposition D, most chapters of the Code apply administrative penalties on a strict liability basis. However, chapters on lobbyist, permit consultant, and major developer rules required the person who violated the rules to have done so knowingly or negligently for administrative penalties to be possible. With Proposition D, administrative penalties will be applied on a strict liability basis for the chapters of the Code on lobbyist, permit consultants, and major developers. Proposition D adds e-filing provisions to 4 chapters of the code that currently do not have such provisions. Currently, some, but not all, chapters of the code allow the Ethics Commission to require e-filing of public disclosures. E-filed disclosures, however, make it easier for the public to access disclosed information and can be easier to file than hard copy forms. Proposition D would add similar general e-filing provisions to 4 chapters in the code that currently do not have such provisions: lobbyist, conflicts of interest, permit consultants, and major developers. Finally, Proposition D has provisions on future legislative amendments for ethics laws. Currently, many chapters of the code do not have specific amendment provisions, which means that those chapters can be amended by a simple majority vote of the Board of Supervisors. All chapters can, of course, be amended by the voters through a ballot measure. Proposition D amends chapters of the code to require that any future legislative amendments be approved by supermajorities of both the Ethics Commission and the Board of Supervisors. And all chapters can be amended by the voters through a ballot measure. Government ethics are up to all of us. If you see something amiss, you may file an anonymous complaint with the Ethics Commission. Go to sfethics.org/complaints to learn more. Thank you for your participation.